Bend. So tonight, we are going to be covering some more past topics to kind of rejuvenate the archives that got lost. In order to round things out, it's an odd grouping of shows. However, let's finish up the. Sorry about that. Oh, I turned them down on here. I guess not. We'll do it now though. Yeah. It finishes out the old notebook, my very first Willows Bend notebook ever that I ever had. So that's interesting. And then we will go on to the second one because I've been up on Soma Fusion now for a year. So I do, if you're wondering what I monitor that in my Facebook group, the Willows Bend. Anybody who messages from anywhere, it appears in there. So I can see any comments that appear. I'm waiting for the feed to pop up. There I am. And then I can acknowledge everybody and who's coming in. Maybe not. I have. Oh, technology. I know we were having some mighty strange weather here a few minutes ago. It was thunderstorming here, and high wind and all that good stuff. So if happen to lose anything with my feed or whatever, that could be why. Just be aware. And I will obviously get back on as soon as possible. So I'm going back into Facebook because I kind of had a screen freeze happening. And hopefully we won't lose power. It seems like it kind of comes in bursts where I happen to live with any weather stuff. So it'll like have a sudden burst and then it'll be done for a couple minutes and then another round will come through. Hi, everybody. Hi, Tonya and Natalie. Spent a half hour trying to find the show yesterday before I realized it was Sunday. You know, I've done the same thing in the past myself, only to realize that a day early. So I feel you there, sister. And hi, Sandy and Marianne and Tonya. Welcome, everybody. So after I messaged into the group, hey, Lori and Chris, that it seems like it had passed, and we had a whole new round of rain and high wind kick up again out there where it sounds like the train's running by. But again, it doesn't last here. Any storms, they just kind of burst in and move on. It's very strange. So tonight we are going to be covering remote viewing, unexplained disappearances, communication with animals, and sacred interventions. Weird clustering of shows, I understand, but it does finish up this notebook. And then I will attempt to find this next one in line to cover those shows again as well. I got to go digging in my notebook pile in there. So I don't know what is next up for that. I am good. Hi, Mary. So I'm not sure on what will be for next week. I will post it, of course, because I have to find the correct notebook first, and I didn't have time to get to it today. Hi, Annette. So I will let everyone know what the topics will be for next week, but we will be done with notebook number 1. Okay, that was Katie commenting. So why don't we go ahead and get started? Looks like most of the crowd is here. If there's any trouble viewing within the Facebook group, you can always go over to the Soma Fusion YouTube channel and watch there live. And any comments you make there will also appear in the chat I have next to me open. So, oh, hey, Karen. All right, so remote viewing. Now, this is a hard one for me to help people understand how I do it, because I do this for people a lot with helping with like home clearings and things, or when they have activity in their home and they're not sure what they're dealing with. And I've done it around the world for people. Oh, you know what? Sage blessing. I didn't see my sage, so I forgot. Bad me. We'll do that real quick, guys. Sorry. just one of those like off discombobulated days. I don't know what's up with that, but it is. All right. Do-do-do. All right, here we go. So with this sage, I cast a circle of protection around anyone who is watching the show live and or I know I should go in the corner, right? Um, and to be protected from any ill will or harm from befalling anyone who is watching in the live or the replay afterward. And may that follow you out into your personal lives as well to keep you safe in all directions from all things. So I will it, so mote it be. There we go. Oh, and as an update for anybody who is not in the book group's chat, so Leela had her kittens sometime between yesterday afternoon and early this morning. She had them outside, so I don't know how many there are or what they look like because they're in one of the enclosures out there. And when I cornered my upstairs neighbor today to say, okay, well, can you at least take a peek and see what we got out there? And in case, one of them sadly may not have made it, who knows, it's always good to see. So it can be taken care of. And he said that the lid had kind of gotten pressed down in, so he can't see inside of it. I was like, well, then take it off. Like, it's not rocket science there, buddy. So anyhow, I don't know what they look like or how many there are. Hopefully they're all okay. The weather is warmer here, so I know that they're okay temperature wise for now. So she's been acting kind of like she might want to bring them in, but not deciding on where to bring them to. So anyhow, yeah, I know, Chris. Duh, exactly. So I've been, each time I go in there, she comes in like she always has, and she's looking around like she wants to find a spot. So I sit in there to see if she's going to start carrying them in, but thus far she hasn't. So, but I give her the opportunity to each time I go in there to sit in there for a good 15 minutes to say, okay, what are we going to do here? But as of yet, she hasn't. Well, it's the feral cat colony I have outside, and that there are two that are semi-tame, and one of them was pregnant, and well, both the females who are pregnant, I think, are siblings, and the one had her litter this past week, and then Leila had hers last night sometime. Yeah, I'm hoping so. Hey, Sandy. So at any rate, I'm giving her the chance to see if she carts them in or not. Your guess is as good as mine. I kind of hope she does, so I can at least keep track of them and know they're okay. But as of yet, she's been only coming in to eat, look around and stuff, and then going back out to them. So she seems to be doing a good job as a mama. All right, remote viewing. So the remote viewing is the practice of seeking impressions about a distant or unseen target using subjective means, in particular extrasensory perception, ESP, or sensing of the mind. It's of course considered pseudoscience because yes, we got the kitties. It's not something that has been consistently replicated. Now, the government did do a whole round of their own experiments with this and had somebody they were using to teach how to do it to others, like anyone can do it type of thing, and teaching them how in a specific protocol way. So in that sense, I don't know where it'd be considered pseudoscience when they were teaching it, but by mainstream science, they still consider it a pseudoscience. So I'm going to talk about like the background history to it and the guy who is doing all of that work for the government. And then I will discuss like my own, I guess, practices with doing that and how I do it. Hey, Nancy. I do have an earring missing because I realized at the last minute that I only have 2 holes on this side and 3 on this side. And I had gotten a pair of opal earrings that is in the first hole, and I didn't really have the time to take it out and put the other one in. So yeah, I just have one. You're very observant. I'm like, yeah, oh well, I'm already all right. It works, you know. Yeah, so I got the 2 on that side and 3 on there. In the 80s style of, the uneven numbered of holes. So, in modern times, remote viewing did originate from the United States government and their interests in basically psychic espionage during the Cold War with Russia via the CIA. Oh, yeah, no, I went to put it in. I was like, oh, snap, there's nearing in there already. Okay, well, yeah, all right, we'll just leave it in. But yeah, I do have the maid over there. Money and resources were given to the CIA to Stanford Research Institute to test for the possibility of remote viewing. And the goal was basically starting out to disprove its existence. And that like no one wanted it to exist or to actually be something to worry about from Russia. So they were given money to research it out to say like, yeah, no, go, this doesn't work. Physicists Russell Targ and Hal Puthoff were tasked with determining if it was real or not. And first subject was Indigo Swan, who had the ability to correctly remote view the weather in any given US city. Swan had shown that he could affect the temperature of insulated containers like up to 25 feet away, that he could change the temperature in there. Now that part, I'm not sure how he did that because it doesn't discuss that, and that's nothing I've ever tried doing. Not saying I couldn't, I just have never tried it. Researchers first had him see if he could affect a super sensitive electromagnetically shielded quartz detector buried 5 feet below ground under a cement floor. And whenever asked to think about the detector, its readings would vary from their baseline. So he was able to impact the baseline buried 5 feet underground. So it was Swan who beat all of Stanford's tests, who coined the term remote viewing to be used of what to call it. So they next tested a person named Pat Price, who was a former police commissioner from Burbank, California. And he used different methods in Swan, but did have excellent results in being able to remote view. So good he was, in fact, that he got hired by the CIA to do remote viewing and to try to, basically spy on the US's enemies during the Cold War, see whatever others were up to in different places. And I do know that they had worked with some gentleman who could do it, he was somehow able to see inside filing cabinet drawers, like the files, and read what was there. And once he started seeing, like, I guess he was snuck his way into the United States government's files and started seeing more of what they were into, and he didn't like what he read. So he pulled out of the whole thing because he was like, this is, you got your fingers in more pots than I agree with and support, and I'm not going there. So this goes beyond being patriotic here. So he pulled himself out of things. Backish, working-ish, okay? So there are different types of remote viewing. Oh, okay. It's Karen saying hi. So the different types of remote viewing are coordinate RV, which is short for remote viewing. Okay, Nancy, be careful. So Swan created a 6-step process that could be taught to anyone called CRV, which was coordinate or controlled remote viewing. And it involved separating out signal from noise in your mind as you view something. And this became the method for the basis of protocols the U.S. Army taught to several groups of viewers. And the program lasted until 1995, when it finally got declassified. And about $20 million got spent on this program over 2 decades. So a lot of taxpayer dollars got shuttled into that. Princeton did a random number generator research on it. And during that time, Princeton had their own research project called micropsychokinesis, with experimenting on the effects of human intentions on a random number generator, or RNGs. And they found that looking at accumulated results of hundreds of thousands of trials, that subjects could influence about 2 to 3 events per 10,000 random coin flips. Odds of those results being by chance were 375 trillion to 1. So, like they were able to influence things well beyond the realm of chance with flipping coins. Swan always said that good remote viewers learn to trust the feelings of uncertainty and ambiguity they get while doing a session, and that a good session is where one viewer has no idea what they've been doing or whether it's accurate or not. If someone said, "I nailed it," then that session got thrown out. So like if they were certain that they saw whatever they were trying to see, it would get tossed. Hope it's okay to share Willows Bend with Donna Gorton group on my page. Of course. Of course. Because people still need permission to join regardless. So if it happens to be someone shady, it can be filtered out. So, hey, Sue, how are you, lady? You made it at the beginning this time, or reasonably at the beginning. So after the program was declassified, the results were reevaluated by a Jessica Utes, who was head of the Statistical Association in 2016. And she was quoted as saying, now this quote is impressive. It kind of got my attention when I remember when I did this research. She said, quote, "Using the standards applied to any other area of science, it's concluded that psychic functioning has been well established. Arguments that these results could be due to methodological flaws in the experiment are soundly refuted. Results similar to government-sponsored research have been replicated at a number of labs across the world. Such consistency cannot be readily explained by claims of flaws or fraud." So she's basically saying that this has stood up against all scientific trials on it, and it is not anything that's fraudulent. So it shouldn't be considered pseudoscience. And someone in her position of power, as being the head of the Statistical Association back in 2016, that's an impressive quote to come from someone like her. I am doing good, Sue. How are you? So remote viewing tends to be more accessible to right brain types, which are more like the free-flowing, intuitive, and disruptive kind of thinking. Like the right brain controls the left side of your body and vice versa. Left side's more like logic and reasoning skills, whereas the right brain is much more like with dealing with imagination and inventiveness and things like that. So just like we don't see air, but we know it's full of signals like cell phones, radio waves, TV signals, etc., empty space is still filled with information. So it's thought that remote viewers are focusing in on the signals and turning down all the background noise of our minds. Now, no one totally knows how it works, but it does. So the way I do it with people, as long as I have like an electronic connection with someone, like on a phone call, I can tune into that person's energy as long as they are in their home, and then send like a fragment of my consciousness, is what I think happens, to their home. And then I tune in from there to any non-human living energy and figure out what is there, and then open the line of communication with whatever is there. Sometimes it is human, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's an elemental, sometimes it's an interdimensional being. It can be any number of things. But that's how I do it. So it's not like a set process per se. I just take a couple of deep breaths and do the phone call, and then bada bing, I'm there. And they do confirm that what I'm seeing is So when I describe a certain area, so say if I see a being in a hallway, and oh, there's a girl's room on the right and there's a closet on the left side, and that type of thing, they confirm that I am correct in what is located where, and that yes, they have a hallway with that, etc. So I mean, I have had plenty of validation saying that yes, what I'm seeing is accurate for their floor plan of their house. One person said that I actually followed the entire floor plan of their house when I went room to room to just check and see was anything else in in each space. Um, and then they said, told me afterward, you do know that you followed the floor plan of my house, don't you? And I said, actually, no, I wasn't aware I did, but it just was ruling out each place and scanning it and seeing if I picked up anything in those spaces to make sure I dealt with everything. So that's how I do it, but it is done differently for each person by the sounds of all the research and stuff on it. So it's kind of finding your own way, but you can give it a try to see if you can do it yourself. Asking someone you're close to, hey, put something out on your nightstand tonight. Don't tell me what it is, and I'll see if I can tune in and get an image of what it is. Or take a picture of having something hidden in your hands, and can you identify what's inside the hands? Or which hand has the object and which doesn't. There's a number of different experiments you can do with it to see, can you identify that and see what it is. So you can give it a try yourself and see if it'll work. It is cool. You do feel the same way, yeah. So I go by, and there are those people who tell me that, oh, that it can't be done over electronic lines and stuff. That doesn't work. Well, that is how I do it. I don't have to have a video conference with somebody. As long as I have phone contact, I'm good. I don't need to see their home, nor do I really want to see their home, because I want to go in cold without, any visuals to kind of validate that I am doing what I'm doing. And then they can't say, well, you saw this on video and you know what's in this room. Well, no, I don't. I've never seen your house before. And some people get worried about security and all that stuff too. So I don't need the camera on. I just do it by phone call. So give it a shot for yourselves and see what happens if you can do that with somebody, even someone in your home. Have, them step out of the room and put one thing in one hand and maybe nothing in the other hand. And can you tune in and see which hand holds something, to identify it, or have them stay in the other room while you just, close your eyes and tune in to their hands and see, can you tell what they're holding? Simple enough way to do it. So many different ways to test it out, but technically anybody can do it just as much as any of the other things I've done. And like I've shown you before in book group with doing the, past life viewing stuff, everyone's capable. Hey, you did make it, Deb. Welcome. So anybody have any questions on that stuff? Hey, Renee. No questions? Okay. Just making sure everyone's secure on that topic before we move on to the next. So the next topic is unexplained disappearances. So with this one, we covered this one actually in March that year. I think it was March, or is that a 5? Nope, sorry, May. We covered this in May 27th of 2019. So when you meditate, is there a particular side of the brain you are using? I don't actually full on meditate because I tend to fall asleep. I'm one of those people. So I just, for myself, take a couple deep breaths to get kind of centered and focused and clear my mind. And then I do whatever it is I'm trying to do. I think I'm accessing both sides of my brain, but probably more the right side if I had to guess. Because like I said, to me, I'm sending out a fragment of my consciousness to the person's home. While I'm still aware of everything going on here around me and what the animal's doing or whatever, I'm just more tuned into what I'm doing. but I'm seeing that in my mind's eye and I'm sensing it and feeling it. When you meditate, is there a particular side of the brain you use? Yeah, I think it's more right side, probably, if I had to guess, because the left side is more dealing with logic and reasoning, which with anything of the metaphysical world, logic doesn't quite fit into most of those molds. So I would have to say probably it's right brain stuff for most people. You're very welcome. Okay, so unexplained disappearances. So this one is a bigger topic in terms of, like, it's kind of scary if to think about the numbers involved with it. So worldwide, 8 million children go missing each year, and some remain unsolved, obviously. Now, some of them, yes, are nefarious things happening to the children, where they're murdered and their bodies are buried and whatever, not found. We know that some are put into the sex trade stuff. What's the matter? You dreaming or something? I thought maybe it was meowing from outside. You all right? Okay. Huh? Were you dreaming? It's all right. She does that sometimes where she'll wake up and she'll be like meowing for me, even though I'm right here. Okay? You good? Hmm? You having a bad dream? It's okay. I'm right here. You're all right. Hmm? Yes, you're all right, honey. Sorry about that. It took me a second to figure out it was her meowing. She's, like I said, done that before with me where I'm not getting treats. What, you get treats because you meowed? Wow. Come on. Sorry. I was actually going to get a Q-tip because her ear is bothering her. Sometimes she gets fluidy in one of her ears. Not mites, but it's like waxy or buildup or something. I don't even know. Not anything the vet's ever given me anything for. But yeah, it's like she has a nightmare or something. It's my best guess by how she wakes up meowing for me. And she seems a little discombobulated when I acknowledge her. So, okay. So worldwide, 8 million children go missing each year, and some remain unsolved, obviously. At any given moment, just in the United States alone, there's roughly 100,000 active missing person cases in existence. Now, there is a gentleman who has written a series of books who wrote 8 of them as of 2018, David Paulides, and he was a former police detective turned investigator, and he's written the books called Missing 411 series of books, which is dealing with the documented disappearances in national parks. And he kind of got asked to look into it. So he doesn't offer any opinion as to what is behind the missing people, but just documenting it, basically, going out and researching the details of it and mapping it all out, because it does very much seem to be a clustering within all the national parks. Now, of course, in the national park system, you always get things that can happen where people get lost and may not find their way out, or die from an animal attack or something. Those things happen. They have that on YouTube too, correct? And we know accidents happen and people get lost and don't find their way back to civilization, die of the elements or dehydration or starvation, whatever. However, there's just a massive number. I've seen the map with all of the dots on it, and there literally are clusterings that line up with the national parks around the country, where there is a higher than average numbers in those places. That is best guess as to what's going on with that. So upon investigating, he requests any records of any missing people in the national park system. Now, the National Park System has told them, oh, we don't keep those records. And to go get them, he said that in order for him to get a hold of them, it would have cost a staggering $1.4 million for him to get the records of the missing people. They do track it. It's just, they make it next to impossible to get a hold of. Now, there's kind of like oddity number one related to these disappearances. So instead of paying $1.4 million, he filed hundreds of Freedom of Information Act requests, and some of them were accepted whilst others were denied for unknown reasons. So he was able to get some of the records through the Freedom of Information Act, but others they turned down and didn't give him a reason why he couldn't have them. So there's red flag number two. The first thing he noted was the presence of the clusters throughout the country. People have disappeared here in much higher, surprising amount of numbers than any other place in the country. Is these, like I said, clusters in the national park system. Excuse me. So concentrated areas include California, Colorado, Washington State, Georgia, Michigan, and Arkansas. There's a total of 52 geographic areas that have been identified. Now, I know when I did the original show, I did have pictures of the map, but I don't use the same system for showing pictures that I used to. So I don't have the pictures of it now, but anybody can look it up online or on YouTube even, and you'll see the maps that he does have everything marked out on. So he's taken note of different aspects of the missing people, that like similarities that have emerged as patterns amongst these missing cases. I've been bollering? What? What do you mean, Renee? Bollering? I don't get what you're saying. I'm not sure on that one. Let's jump back to girl. I'm waiting here real quick while you're in position and I can reach you. I know you hate it, and I'm sorry. Yeah, just waxy. Oh, no, actually, I don't use him for research purposes. I mean, I do watch him, but I get this stuff from online research, like actual research. And this show was actually put out well before I discovered Mr. Ballin. This was done originally back in May of 2019 that I did this show originally. So yeah, I do watch his stuff. But yeah, I know you're kidding. I'm just saying, like, I don't even know if he was doing his show back then or not. But yeah, I do it the old-fashioned way. I earn it. He's a storyteller, Nancy, that has his own show and podcast that he tells stories of this stuff, and he is cute, yes. And he tells stories of like different unusual things that have happened, paranormal stories. They're real stories, but he has covered the disappearances before as well. He's a good storyteller. He's an ex-Navy SEAL, actually. So some similarities he has noticed within these patterns are quite odd, and like I said, red flags. And I'll leave it to you to kind of figure out or what you think are behind it. I have my own ideas about it, but so the first one that he noted throughout all the notes and stuff on it, he is not hard to look at either. Definitely not. He is cute. So yep, that's my suspicion too, Karen. So he noted that search dogs behave strangely, that often that they don't pick up the scent or don't want to pick up the scent. And I mean, that's what they're trained to do. So if they do start to track the scent of somebody, and like they'll suddenly lay down and stop searching, like the person just disappeared from the search area, which is obviously not typical behavior for them. He's got the looks. Yep. Cadaver dogs, which, they search for the dead bodies typically, they're not able to locate any corpses of anybody, which is also unusual, like no trace of that anywhere. A body's found in an area that has been searched before many times. It can have been searched a dozen times and nothing has been found. And then after it's been searched a dozen times, it suddenly turns up on this like well-trodden path that has been researched out by every groups and groups of searchers and dogs and the whole 9 yards, and they've covered the area well to where there's nothing there, and yet then later the body will turn up there, or the body will turn up, like I said, on a main trail that a hiker uses daily, which again, it wasn't there any of the times through the search before. The missing are often found uphill. So they're often found up at high levels of elevation, like mountain peaks, as if they traveled up like an astounding number of miles over treacherous terrain faster than humanly possible. So, even small children have gone disappeared in like where a toddler, let's say, or a preschooler, and they were with their parents, and 1 second they were there, but like, right behind the person, and they turn around to say something to the person ahead of them on the trail, and they turn back to look at the child, and the child's just gone. And they've never seen them or heard anything that sounded like they may have gotten attacked by an animal, or no cries, no nothing. It's just like poof, they're gone. And when they get found, if they're found, it's been like at the top of a mountain peak that obviously a small 3 to 4 year old child cannot climb up a mountain peak to make it to the top, and that's where any remains were found. So it just doesn't make sense that a human could travel to there, or in the speed in which they get found. A toddler would never make that journey, or a preschooler even, and survive it. And by the time the remains are found, it's not humanly possible to make it there. Very ominous, very ominous. He also noted that there's weather-related phenomena. So shortly after a person goes missing, the forecast ends up taking on a drastic turn, where there can be torrential rain, lightning, and or sandstorms even, or blizzards that delay the search party getting out there. We do need, I call it fine art myself, Nancy. There's also missing clothing. Shoes, pants, shirts, and jackets have often been removed, even by children too young to dress themselves. There'd be no reason to remove clothes in questionable environments. If you're in an environment that's kind of rough, even a child's not going to choose to undress itself when it's cold out, obviously. And those things have been found. Or if they find a body, they're not wearing those clothes. Sometimes the clothes were found neatly folded, not necessarily with the body, but they've been found separately. I think there was one example of a young boy who disappeared, and his shoes and I think like a jacket and a pair of pants or something were found folded and sitting on top of each other at the very top of a high mountain peak, which there's no way that aged child could have climbed that peak and survived, and never mind disrobing up there once he's there. You can go have a look. It's okay. I'll be here. He also noted a high number of plane crashes, where search planes and helicopters seem to crash at an unusually high rate during these specific cases. That the people who disappear, they tend to be at the extreme ends of the intellectual scale. So they're like bloody brilliant people. Sugar eyes are fun. So like, let's see. So the people there's a high number of people who go missing who are either very well educated, like doctors and physicists, or that they have disabilities like autism or Down syndrome, kind of like one extreme or the other of the intellectual scale. People with German ancestry go missing at a higher rate as well. It's kind of weird, right? Um, Boulder fields and granite. So there's a high number of women and men that vanish in boulder field areas or where there's huge amounts of granite around. So like there have been some locations that have, like the back when in the ice age and stuff, when they were moving through the areas creating, landscaping stuff, that they had deposited giant massive boulders in the area. And so there's some areas that have just really super large boulders in them. And they tend to be granite, the type of stone for granite, that there's a lot of them in this area where they're massive size, but they're granite. So there's a high number of people that disappear in these field-like areas that contain these massive boulders and such. Trying to start the Third Reich again. Yeah, it could be, Yeah, it makes you wonder though why people of high German ancestry tend to go missing more. Is that supposed to be space, Renee? Victims recovered near bodies of water is also common. Yeah. So the bodies often discovered near oceans, lakes, rivers, streams, or swamps is also common. That's where, if remains are found, that's where they tend to be located. I know one case as far as like the boulder fields and granite thing, there was a teenage girl who she was maybe 14 and she was camping with her father and brother and she wanted to take pictures of I think the boulders, to be honest, and they were I think fishing at the lake or something, and it was literally like 50 yards away. She said, I'm going to go take some shots, I'll be right back. And they said okay, and they were looking back and forth between them to kind of eyeball each other and keep an eye out on them. And the next time they looked around, she wasn't there, and they went looking for it. And the only thing that got found was the lens cap to her camera. And that was it. She was never seen nor heard from again. Nazi aliens? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I don't have that either, Nancy. But then again, I don't have any German ancestry either. So, Tanya, don't go hiking in state parks. Then you'll be safe. I used to be blonde, but it darkened over time. Maybe I'm safe now. Not if you have the ancestry to you of it. But, I don't have any German in me. But it's cases like that happen with where, again, the person's there 1 second and then they're not. Like literally, someone will turn their head to say something ahead of them and look back, and the person's poof gone. And even if something like a mountain lion or whatever grabbed the person, you would hear, yelling and screaming or a scuffle happening in the brush or something, some signs that something happened to them. And there just is no noise. They just aren't there. I've never had German in me either. Yeah, well, that's good that you had it and didn't lose. You lost it or something. Another one is that he noticed that was common was berry pickings. So those who are berry picking seem to go missing at higher rates too. Why? Who knows? Well, my kids have blue eyes. They were blonde when they were little. Yeah, I have blue-green eyes, but I'm 25% Scottish and 25% Irish, and the rest is Northwestern European, like English, Welsh. One of the other red flags was not the person not feeling well or being too tired. So prior to disappearance, the victims report to family or friends that they're not feeling well or that they're feeling tired. You are. And I actually think your hair looks better now than it used to when it was dark. Being last in line is another commonality where one of the reoccurrence of all the traits in any group is that the person who disappears is the person walking last in the line, that people in the group report seeing them mere seconds before and then they vanish without a trace. No one has ever reported hearing any sounds of something happening to them, or being grabbed by an animal or something. They were taking Bigfoot's food and they kidnapped them. That could be. So there were no like gasps from the person, screams, or animal sounds whatsoever that occurred. So David Pallades states that, or he hasn't stated that what or who he thinks is responsible. Again, he merely represents the facts of the case and leaves it up to the readers to draw their own conclusions. So it's up to you guys to figure out what you think it is. I think portals are a possibility. I think aliens might be involved in some of them as well. So that's kind of the only thing I've come up with on it. I've never actually tuned into like the photo of one of them to see what I might pick up on them, but I've thought of it before. I just never have actually done it. But it's definitely odd, to say the least. And those are all the commonalities he noticed in looking at the statistics from what documents were released. And as we know, that there is a lot of conspiracy theories regarding aliens' involvement with the government. Some speculate that the government agreed to allow a certain number of people to be taken from the world's populations as long as they leave the rest of them alone and kind of do what you want with them. Maybe they're intergalactic beings to begin with, cloaked as humans for research. Yeah, maybe. I also, because if you stop to think about all right, so with the statistics on this, let me go back to the beginning so I can get you the accurate number. So in the US alone, that there's approximately 100,000 active missing person cases going on at any time. Multiply that by every other country in the world, and you're going to have millions of people who go missing every single year without a trace. And again, even if you take away those who disappeared for, they were murder victims or put into the sex trade or sex trafficking stuff, whatever, runaways, etc., you still are left with this massive number of people whose disappearance are never explained. Yeah, I agree. And so it is thought that back when Roosevelt met with the alleged alien meeting thing that happened way back during his term, that was one of the things that they agreed upon in the agreement, was to allow X amount to be taken per year as long as they left the rest of the world population alone. So it is a theory that is involved with this stuff. Space Force, can we make a better name? Sounds like the title of an 80s B-rated movie. Yeah, like Spaceballs or something. They certainly are a special kind of breed of something. Yeah, so it is. That's one of the working theories regarding those disappearances anyway. Yep, Eisenhower too. And so, but it is a possibility. I don't discount it, Yeah, I did too, Nancy. And so that is a possibility that the president agreed to that in terms with them when he met with them, or allegedly met with them at Area 51. So who knows? I don't put anything past the government. So on to the next topic. So I'll leave it up to you guys to figure out what you think happened. But yeah, there's definitely no signs of it being animals responsible for these disappearances. And speaking of animals, on to animal communication. So this one was done back in June of 2019, I believe. It's on AHS last season. Yeah. Well, exactly, Marianne. Thinking that I mean, I'm not going to get into like a political discussion about anything, but has anyone ever been found or shown up? No, no one ever has been. There was one guy who he was a college student and he had gone out cross country skiing by himself, and people knew where he went, and he never returned home. And it was a very odd case because it was what the officials found of his, like, what he any remains. So his tracks and stuff led up to the edge of a lake, and there was his backpack and his skis, but no signs of him found. And then several months went by, and he finally contacted his family. And he says that he woke up like in some, I think it was a Midwestern state. And I mean, this took place like in Alaska or something, like, really snowy, cold state. And that he originally woke up, didn't know where he was and what was going on. He had a different set of clothes on that didn't belong to him. And he had a backpack on, but it wasn't his original backpack. And in the backpack, it was full of maps and stuff and things that kind of indicated he had been traveling to different places around the country, but he had no memory of having done so. And he made his way home, but he refused to talk about it publicly after that. So that's, as far as I know, the only one that turned up alive, but he doesn't have any working memory of what happened to him. It could have been Illinois, but I know it's definitely a cold state that he was out cross country skiing in. It was a very odd but interesting case all the same. So, all right. So this one took place in June of 2019. Actually, right after I moved in here and got back from the Paracon event where I met Tonya in person. All right, animal communication. So with animal communication, it is a telepathic link that you're making to the animal to communicate and hear them. First, you have to believe in your heart that you can communicate with them. Everyone, it said, can do it, just like with any of this quote psychic gifts. Yeah, that was a cool experience. So this is that, like, we didn't do a show the week before that because I was traveling back from Paracon. So this was the first show after I got back. You need to be able to quiet your mind to do it. And it's based off of energy vibrations. So a dog's energy field is 10 times more expansive than ours is, for example. Animals can function on instinct, which is another word for their vibrational frequencies. But in communicating, I think we get our vibrations to match theirs is what happens. And that allows communication to occur. And it said that you have to listen with your heart, which can be hard to understand how it's done. But I mean, especially dogs is easy to communicate with for me because they tend to be more open in nature than cats are. Cats can be a little bit more difficult, not impossible. I have done it before. But this is living animals you're communicating with. So there are different ways to communicate with your animals. The first, most obvious one is to observe and learn their body language, which, what their body language is saying, take notice of that. Look how they use their feet and tail, if they have one, in their posture, etc. Learn the animal's particular vocalizations and what they stand for. And animals don't have like a true language like we do. They're more akin to being like an empath and operate on feelings and signal codes. So the depth of their understanding is related to the depth of their exposure to other beings. So, for example, if an animal has grown up around a human who, say, speaks Russian, and they've been exposed to the Russian language all of their life, yes, they do learn what key words in the Russian language mean, and they understand them on, they say, for most, like an average dog is like a grade schooler's level. Mine just stares into my door pitting. That's one way to communicate. And and the same goes for the English language or any language that the animal grows up around it and is exposed to the language and comes to learn certain words of it to know and figure out what you are expecting of them. um, Animals use all senses, including psychic energy, to communicate with other beings. Pet psychics say that they can talk about all the same topics we do, which is true, and goes into the bathroom and just sings. She likes the acoustics. When one of my dogs hears me say I'm going somewhere to someone, she goes to the living room to wait. Yeah, so they do understand a lot of our language, or even, little girl, if she's being a troublemaker, or I'm not sure where she is, I can say her name and tell her to come on and come get over here. She'll come trotting out to me and jump up on the bed to be next to me. So she understands. Right. Well, it's any dog, that whatever language it's in is what they're going to get taught, where the people live who have them. So, you can sit in another room and imagine in your mind of like the animal coming up to you repeatedly, and they will come. So if you're thinking of, um, even with a cat, just sit and think about your cat and visualize the cat coming up to you. They will come into where you are in the other room without you calling out to them, because they're picking up the telepathic communication. My son's dog can spell. If you spell go, he's perks right up. That's funny. A lot of police are canine too. Yep. So that's an experiment you can try if you have an animal, to sit in the other room, clear your mind, visualize the animal coming up to you and calling it in your mind, and they should come to you because they pick up like the psychic vibrations of the telepathy. So you can also have a thought about an animal in front of you, like sitting, etc. And they should respond to that. Just thinking about and visualizing them doing the action you want them to do, and they should respond to it without speaking out loud. You really just need like clarity of heart in your thoughts to be able to accomplish it. Now, it can be harder to hear their responses, as it can come in like fleeting, quick bursts of thought that can be hard to get from there to understanding what they want and when they say it. Mine can spell too. I try to spell words so she doesn't know, but she's figured it out. Yeah, no, they do. They're smart. And so, they, again, most have like a grade schooler's education level of intelligence. And as mammals, they're capable of all the same emotional responses we have, and disabilities, and mental health issues, etc. So, lots of times they'll speak in like quick bursts of words. So, for example, when Jake was here, he would typically speak in one or two word responses to me, like, cat food, or out, or up, whatever, or, treats. He would just kind of state that to me and not do a whole conversation. But he also thought it was funny that that's all he would say to me, and I'd have to figure out what he wanted from there. It's like a running joke. He had a weird sense of humor to things. Yes, they can learn sign language. Absolutely. Yep. So, it's usually just quick word bursts. They can reply using their feelings or pictures, or outright say the words. We just have to be open enough to pick up on whatever way they're using, and not be in, having our mind going a million miles an hour with 100 other things, you're in your head at the time in order to hear them. Clear your mind if you can't get quiet with your energy. And that's kind of what it's like to listen from your heart, is you quiet everything down and get calm and relaxed and just be open, and then stuff should come through. Most animals are delighted to finally be heard and understood, and they do tend to have a whole lot to say. you know, when I would connect to other living dogs, they'd have entire conversations with me of things that they had to say and wanted to say, um, and express themselves quite clearly. But cats, like I said, they can be, you know, they can choose not to talk to you. But even her, you know, even though yes, I do still stand by thinking she's autistic, but when I am quiet and I'm just relaxed, there's been random times where I hear a few words from her and I'm like, okay. And I've stopped to process it because I wasn't paying attention when it comes in, but she does. There's a guy on TikTok that's been training his dog to respond to sign language. Cool. I don't know what she talks to me, but I usually know what she wants when she looks at me. Well, that is kind of like a telepathic thing, though, Nancy, is she's communicating telepathically with you what she wants to where you know it. So it doesn't always have to come across as, Mother, I would like to go outside now. You know, it's not going to be something like that, but it's just I mean, that is what psychic stuff is most of the time, is a knowing. A cat flips you the tail, that too. And that's part of their body language that they communicate with. But, you know, it's going to be through, like I said, sometimes it can be an image. It can be kind of like, oh, what's that one? Just lost the word. Not clairaudient. Donna, come on, pull that word out. I just can't find that word in my headspace. But it's where, like, psychic knowing, where you just know what you know. They do a lot of ASL. Yes, they do with the gorillas. Yes, images. And so they can communicate in words. They can do language. Clairvoyant. Yes, that's another term for it, Marianne. Thank you. We'll call that close enough. And so it's just knowing what it is they are wanting. Clairsentient. Yes, thank you, Tonya. That was the specific word I was trying to pull out, and it wasn't coming. I'm like, no. My dachshund talks and talks sometimes to me. Yeah, like I said, cats can be a little bit different just because they have different personality types and traits and so forth, and idiosyncrasies and independence streaks. Dogs are more open by nature, so you tend to get more out of them than you do a cat. But yeah, it's, you know, clairsentient, where you just know what they're wanting. It just is a knowing. So it's not necessarily going to be a burst of conversation or a bunch of pictures or, you know, excuse me, but do you have any Grey Poupon? No, you know, but sometimes it's just, you know what they want. Pardon me, do you have any Grey Poupon? Cats are more independent, yes. So I guess, like, basically they say that telepathy between animals isn't much different than it is with people, and how they do it, that they communicate with each other the same way. It's just much more on a basic instinct level with them. So how do we do it? Now, this is for anybody. No, but I saw the tidy bowl man. Oh, cats don't normally meow to each other. Yes, cats learned to be vocal for our purposes, our sake. And they learn that the different meows get them different things and responses. So, but amongst themselves, no, they don't often use that verbal language with each other. And some red wine to go with that, yes. So, how to do it? This is like, if you want to try doing this on your own as an experiment, put a little bit of emotion into what you want to send to them. Picture it in your mind and sit back and relax and let their answers come to you. Like I said, quiet your energy down and clear your mind and just be relaxed and open, and see if you either get images, or it can be a couple words, or just that knowing of what it is. But you can send to them in the form of a question and ask them, and see if you receive like something that they would respond back to. So picture in your mind, sit back and relax, let their answers come to you. Trust what you get, whether it is images or words. And if you are only speaking to them, then who else would be answering? Mhm. Wish I could connect with my prowler kitty to know what's happened to him. He disappeared a month ago. I've done that before for Chris. Thank you, Natalie. Um, to help her connect to her lost kitty before. And don't lose faith, because I mean, I've heard of animals being gone for years and finding their way home eventually through different means. So you never know. So, um, trust, like I said, trust what you get, because if you are only talking to them with your mind's eye or your mind's ear, whatever, the language, telepathy, who else is going to answer you besides them? Really? Think about that. So, just with everything else, like you start doubting yourself and everything, and you're going to get nowhere and nothing in return. You got to trust what you get and don't question it to death, because logic doesn't apply to this stuff. That's what a lot of people miss in understanding or opening up their gifts, is that logic doesn't apply. And once you can overcome that, then and understand and accept it, that societal teachings and logic don't apply here, it goes a lot more smoothly, and you go more with the current rather than against it. So give it a shot, see what happens, see what you get. You never know. So, last topic for the night is sacred interventions. And this was done on June 17th, and it was episode 30 out of all the ones that were done the first year. So, sacred interventions, divine interventions, really the same idea behind it. These may include activities that lead someone to find meaning in their life. And again, it can be also known as divine interventions. So it can be a miracle or an act of God or gods that causes something good to happen or stopping something bad from happening. And the interactions can be direct, like visual or auditory manifestations of a deity to a human. Many Christians believe, obviously, with visions and miracles are forms of sacred interventions. Another word for it is also providence, and that's foreseeing care and guidance of God. And in the 14th through the 17th century, that was very common and popular to say that providence was involved in something. So that's one way to look at it. Now, in modern times, divine interventions has become the more popular term for it and entered into a secular discourse to describe any event that appears to have been guided by a greater force than yourself. So it's not seen as just being a guardian angel or God intervening, but also it can be guides, a loved one, ancestor intervention, that type of stuff. So troubled events can also turn out well unexpectedly. And some people view everything good that happens to them as a sacred intervention, but it's more pertaining to like random luck. And what, like we talk all the time, there is nothing that happens by chance or randomness. So, and when something happens, it's because it's supposed to happen. But some people look at it that way. Like getting a good parking spot. Some people think that, oh, that's a divine intervention that's happening, or hearing from an old friend. These lead to much more subjective discussions and conclusions about this stuff when you see it just, you're putting it all good luck stuff off on, well, my guide must have intervened on behalf of me, or, oh, my guardian angel was with me today because I got the parking spot I wanted. In Christianity and in biblical speaking, God intervenes in affairs of the world in the form of miracles, healings, supernatural things like signs, etc. And have you ever had a time in your life where things could have ended really, really badly and they didn't? And that's a question for any of you in chat. Like, I know while I wait for you guys to answer, there was a time when my daughter was a baby and I was out doing the dishes and I thought my mother had an eye on her, and my mom senses suddenly dinged off at me of where's the baby? And I yelled into my mom like, "Hey, do you have her?" And she said, "No, I thought you did." So I started calling for her and looking around for her. And when she was up and awake and around, we used to keep the litter box inside the cellar door on the landing there before the stairs. She had pried open the door, which stuck. Like when you partially closed it, it stuck. She somehow managed to pull it open. She was maybe about 8, 9 months old. And I opened the door, slowly, in case she was there. I didn't want to startle her by the stairs. She's sitting with her back to the stairs. Her butt was maybe this far from the edge of the stairs. And she was playing in the kitty litter box. And the what ifs behind that were so scary. I started crying after I, happily got her out of there, like, "Oh, there you are, come to mommy." And inside, I'm like screaming and crying until I put her safely in the living room. Then I think I did start to cry over the what ifs behind it. But, like something like that was like the what if behind it was so scary of an idea. If she went over backwards, head first, of what would have that would not have ended well down a flight of stairs, obviously, at that age. And I probably would have lost her. But, I looked at it as that she's being very well protected. My friend saw a huge hand reach down and hold her back during a car accident. Oh, wow. Many times, many times. Yeah, so like that was just one example where something horrible could have happened. Or, the car accidents I had that I was severely injured in, she walked away. She was in both of the bad ones, and she walked away where one of them she clanked her teeth together, and that was it on impact. And I was out of work for 2 years from the injuries. And the last one I had, she complained about mild whiplash symptoms for the rest of the day of the accident, and that was it. And I was out of work for, I think, a couple of months and kind of had to go back because I didn't have a choice financially. So, I mean, she was very well protected. Too many to count. Yeah. So, and what did you guys attribute those to? Like, did you attribute those things to like divine intervention of a certain being, or just kind of say, while they're looking out for me, or my guardian angels on duty, or like, what did you guys attribute those things to? I was in a situation, says Natalie, where my son and I were going through a green light. Someone ran the red and we were sure we would be hit, but time stood still for a minute. And then it looked like a picture frame as the car went in front of us and suddenly was gone. It was really surreal. Oh, wow. Nancy says, I've had warnings to slow down or stop on the road and it prevented an accident. Sandy says, fate or the powers that be. Karen didn't think much of it. Yes, being looked after. Yeah. So, Jeff says, as a kid, nothing as a young adult on divine intervention. Yeah. So a person's personal beliefs definitely have a kind of a flavoring of how you view that intervention, but it still tends to be a higher being other than yourself, or a higher power of some kind that is intervening and protecting you. So let's see. Some people report being saved by angels if they are Christian. Some say they've even seen an angel intervening on their behalf. Sorry, Annette. Some perceive the presence of deceased relatives helping them, or just a feeling they get. I know one incident was of a woman who was in a really severe car accident, and she had a baby with her, and she, I think, was killed in the accident, and her baby survived. Somebody saw her, like a vision of her on the road, basically, like standing on the side of the road, because the car had rolled well down the embankment out of sight of the road, so nobody knew it was down there and that the accident happened. and somebody reported having seen the mother up on the road. And that's what got their attention to slow down and stop. And then they noticed the car down there, and they went down to investigate. And they found this baby alive after like 3 or 4 days down there by itself in, pretty cold temperatures. And the mother, it was after autopsy was done, was deemed to have been killed on impact. Yet her, her presence was seen up on the road to get the attention in order to help rescue the baby. And it's thought that it kept the baby alive somehow that way. Paranormal 911, yep. So yeah, there's a lot of different things that people attribute them to. Yeah, definitely a miracle. But it's usually a higher being of some kind watching over you, or an ancestral being keeping an eye out on you. Even my daughter, when she was having a discussion with me on doubting that any of this stuff is real or exists, I still kind of questioned her to say, well, like, how can you say that, or how do you know that? And after all the close calls you had and you walked away, how can you say none of it is real? Oh, so I just found notes separate from my notebook that I must not have thought I had room in my notebook to write. And it's on stories of sacred and divine intervention. There we go. Good thing I looked. So a 19th century portrait painter named Joseph Matthias Agner from Austria. And like many artists, he was an unhappy guy, and he attempted suicide several times. His first attempt at age 18 was when he tried to hang himself, and he got interrupted by the appearance of a Capuchin monk. At age 22, he again tried to hang himself, and again the monk saved him. Natalie says, a guy picked my friend and I up to go to the beach. We were scared to death as he went 90 miles an hour through a windy canyon. We later found out he was high on cocaine. Later, once we got home unscathed, we wanted to go get something to eat. This guy asked if I wanted to drive his Trans Am. I was glad to be the driver this time, and as I started to drive, the power steering went out. We dodged a bullet that day. Wow. When I was a teenager, says Nancy, I should have died several times, but someone or something was watching out for me. I agree with you on that one. Same here. So this Joseph guy, 8 years later, he was sentenced to death for his political activities. And he was set to die by, you guessed it, the gallows, to be hung again. And again, it was thwarted by the same monk. Finally, at age 68, he was successful at killing himself with a pistol. His funeral was conducted by the same Capuchin monk, whose name that no one knew the name of the monk, but he was the one who conducted the funeral. The same monk he had seen all of his life as he was trying to kill himself. The same monk conducted the funeral, which he probably wouldn't have been alive after 40 odd years of intervention. The next one is for Tonya Tyler, and she was a local radio personality, and she was doing laundry and getting ready to fold the clothes by her baby when she suddenly got a gut feeling that something was very wrong. Capuchin is also a monkey, but it's an order of monks as well. So as she got the gut feeling that something was wrong, and as she set down the laundry, she says that she actually heard in her mind, run. She turned and grabbed her baby. As she took one step, she could hear the tree tearing through her living room. A tree crashed into her living room in the exact spot she had just been standing with the baby. They were both only covered in dust, insulation, and debris, but they survived. Kevin Diepenbrock, I think his name is pronounced, and the headline on this article is Biker Credits God and Guardian Angels After Crash. So Kevin was a biker who had a nasty accident that left him at the bottom of a steep embankment 105 feet from the highway. That would have been very scary. So he had a motorcycle accident that left him at the bottom of a 105-foot embankment down from the highway. No one could see or hear him, and there was no cell service in this remote area. The accident happened in Knoxville, Tennessee on Highway 129, called the Tail of the Dragon. Seems like I remember hearing several stories like that when 911 Twin Tower happened. Yes, there were several stories from that also happened from that. So this guy, he and a buddy were out riding, and his friend rode too close and it sent them toppling down the embankment. His friend died in a crash. Kevin lay injured for more than a whole day. He accepted the fact that he would die too and began making goodbye videos to his loved ones on his phone with the hopes that they would be shared after his death. 30 hours after the crash, he credits God for sending divine intervention in the form of a car that happened to pull over at his exact spot on the road. He was yelling for help when he got hurt. He had a fractured spine, broken ribs, and road rash, but was expected to make a full recovery. There's another one, little girl survives mountain lion attack. At a family reunion in Idaho, things were interrupted by 4-year-old Kelsey Butt being attacked by a mountain lion. The reunion was held near Green Canyon in Hot Springs. Kelsey was out walking with her 2 cousins when a 93-pound male mountain lion appeared out of nowhere. He grabbed Kelsey before anyone could intervene. Also heard of the boy that was born after 911 and he reincarnated. Yes, I heard that story too, Sandy. So this mountain lion had grabbed Kelsey before anyone could intervene and stop it. Quote, he had my daughter in his mouth and couldn't pick her up, so he dragged her to get a better bite on her, unquote. Her father, Israel Butts, remembers. Quote, he rolled her over with his paws to better get her in his mouth. Kelsey's mom understandably freaked out and ran to the mountain lion screaming, and it worked. It dropped Kelsey. Kelsey was bleeding and had puncture wounds on her belly, but was otherwise absolutely fine. She had a lot of bruising, but no major damage. They believe the angels were watching over Kelsey, and she survived because of it. So those are just some stories of what people attribute to divine intervention. It's, close calls you have, but you survive anyway. And I think that it's for a reason that people are meant to, because of something they're meant to go on to do and accomplish later in their life. And sometimes through the free will decisions of whomever is involved, it can change things in a direction that it wasn't necessarily meant to originally go. So they may intervene to put it back on track. Definitely good stuff. Yeah, she got lucky. So that's the 4 topics we covered for tonight. So I will root through everything in the other room to find the right notebook that picks up where this one leaves off, so we can continue covering the other archived items that got lost, unless anyone has a different specific topic that they would like to cover again or separately, you know what I mean, like a newer topic, which is another option. But otherwise, if you guys want to continue anyway. I wonder if our alien friends will stop another world war. Well, there has been some channeled messages coming through about that. Chris has posted some of them in Willow's Ben group. Others are on my page. So you're welcome to have a look-see at those. So it's supposed to be playing out as it's meant to. So do you guys want to look at covering a new topic or continuing covering the archives? Don't remember exactly when, but I remember some people finding a missing tot and found it cuddled with a bobcat. Oh, wow. Real vampires in Arizona. I know I had covered, I want to say they were in California though, but it was like a real vampire couple ones that were living the life of actual vampires. I don't think they're in Arizona though. I don't quite remember exactly where they were. I think California, but not necessarily. Archives are fine. Okay. So if we are recovering the archives, wherever they were, should get recovered because I believe that was within the archives that got lost. Why don't we keep getting the archives done? Yep, New Orleans has a whole vampire culture out there. Absolutely. Okay. Because we still would have, like, I don't know. I believe I started Willows, the first Willows Bend show. Yeah. So November 5th, 2018 was the very first Willows Bend show. So this is only 7 months into the first year's worth of stuff that got, well, no, because we lost like what, 2 years of archive stuff, really. So I'm happy either way. It's always good to review. If you want to get new stuff, I'm all good that way too. Okay. Yeah. Some of it goes back to 2018. I would say we're now into 2019, but I mean, everything goes up to, I think I've been up on Soma Fusion for a year now. So March of last year is when I would have started with Katie, I think. Katie can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's been about a year. So 2021. So yeah, up through 2020. Do y'all remember about a woman, Barbara, went missing doing a story about vampires? No, I don't think I heard of that one. I watched a hit documentary that had a skull and teeth that were fangs. Interesting. February, yes. Okay. So last month marked a year that I've been with Soma Fusion. So yeah, that's what I figured too. Yep. It's just over a year now. We've been with Katie. So yeah. So everything up until last February then would be the archive stuff that got lost. February 8th. Look at her go. So yeah, technically, because today, well, tomorrow is the 8th actually for March. So happy anniversary, Katie. So anyways, we'd be covering, the archives would go up until, a year ago from, so February of last year, 2020. So it would be 2019. So February of 2019, Barbara Ransett wrote a book about trying to find her. Huh. Katie is good. She is. So I will peruse my notebook stack that I have in the other room of all the previous old notebooks and see what hasn't been covered yet in the archives so we can replace them. And as long as everybody keeps paying for the dues to keep it going, otherwise, I mean, the shows would still be saved in Willows Bend and on Facebook, but it's still at Facebook's whim at that point, where Katie's has the archive outside of Facebook. So that's what y'all are paying for. So don't forget to check them off. Yeah, like I said, this notebook is the very first one, and that's now done. We finished this one, and that was up through episode 27. Well, exactly, Karen. We lost the first one because I was getting targeted. So we lost everything in the first group. And that was a year ago that all that happened in the summer, I believe. So this past summer was a year. So everything up until like last June got lost. So everybody keep that in mind, that it's not fair for everybody to like the same 2 or 3 people to help cover the dues for staying up with Katie. You guys want that to continue. Because more than just those 2 or 3 people watch the show. Even if everyone just chipped in $1, we have what, 267 people in the group, and granted, not all of those participate. We know that, but there's plenty more that do, and that would cover dues for like 6 months. If everyone paid like $1 a month, that doesn't take a lot. But it shouldn't fall to the same few people or waiting to see who else is going to stand up and get it covered first. Like, I always feel like I'm chiding everybody every month, like, come on, guys. If you don't want any more, say so. You know what I mean? We're good on kitty food right now, Nancy, because Matt said, which is my upstairs neighbor, he said that since Leela is, who I think it's her sister, who had her litter of kittens last week, that all the other guys have been staying away. So I'm no longer feeding 7 mouths. And I just bought 2 20-pound bags. So they're set for now. Facebook delegates stuff, government covers up. Makes sense. Yep. Please tell me how to pay the dues. Just through PayPal, Natalie. Up in the so in the group, there is right below the group photo is a row of pictures that are things that are pinned to the top, and one of them has my PayPal link in it, and it's like paypal.me/Donna Gorton. So once I get all of the money there, I forward it on to Katie in PayPal. Is how it works. So, it can be sent directly to Katie, but then I don't know whether it's all been covered or not. So just to circumvent Katie and I driving ourselves nuts, whether it's been covered or not, it's easier. Everyone sends it to me and I forward it. So, and that can be done either you can also do it through Messenger. PayPal works through Messenger as well. You just click on like the little dots to the left side of the chat box and follow the directions. And then, send it to choose me to send it to. So either way works. Thank you, Sandy. So yeah, like if you send it directly to me, then I know if we're still lacking a certain amount, and I can post it in the group and keep track. And then when it reaches the 25, I forward it on to Katie. Yeah, it is easier to send it to me than I know if it's covered or not, or if we're still missing some. Like Mary, bless her heart, she paid some forward towards next month, but not all of it. So there is still some sitting on my account there to have enough to cover next month's dues. Good night, Deb. Lots of love, lady. Thank you for making it. So I do keep it separate. I don't withdraw the money to my account. I just leave it in Facebook. And then when there's enough there, I send it to Katie in Facebook. Yep. Absolutely, Sandy. So just something to keep in mind. Like I said, it shouldn't fall on the same people's shoulders every month to cover it. That's not fair. So anyway, lots of love to everybody. I hope you all have a wonderful week. And for those interested, I will see you guys Wednesday night in book group, as always, 8 p.m. Eastern. And otherwise, have a wonderful rest of the night, guys. Lots of love to everybody.